Just like to welcome everyone to the Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting for the 28th of November. And I'd just like to welcome the public too. I'd like to ask for any apologies. I don't think there's any. No apologies. We'll move on to. Thanks. Accept that, Joe. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. We'll move on to our reports, straight into it. First of all, we've got the Muriwai Centre project report from Signal. Was Jim's here? No comments? What's any comments from the floor? Everyone's happy about that one. Would someone move that the report be received? Thanks, Councillor Fraser. A seconder, Councillor McPhail, Paul McPhail. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. The next one to cover is the project register. We had some comment, or would I like to welcome David Prentice. You're on board, are you?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. That's good. Project register. Jason will comment on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in terms of this report, so we've sort of taken notice, I guess, of some of the comments from the last committee and taken a bit more of a cautious approach to our particularly forward-looking work program around some of the projects that we have on this list. And so you'll see a few more oranges and some reds, and that's sort of reflecting, I guess, what early on in the project, particularly where those reds are around the risks and the worst-case scenario outcomes. So potentially just providing a bit more of a visual as to where the projects are at this point, and still, I guess, the ability for them to change and the risk of them being achieved change over time. So, yeah, happy to have any questions or comments on the register.
To you, Chair.
Yes, David?
Yeah, first of all, it may have been me that made that comment at the last meeting, so thank you very much for taking that on board. But the interesting thing is the pendulum seems to have flipped now. So now I actually don't know what way I'm looking. So help me out. If I go back 3 months, I see a sea of green, I feel good, I go to bed, I snore, I sleep 10 hours. I now see a site, let's take out by the way, can I make a suggestion that we take out the ones that are completed, because I think we can't necessarily see the wood for the trees here. So 2 of these projects are actually completed and 2 others are more or less completed. And of the remaining ones, there's quite a large number of orange and reds in there. So I look at that and I'm now quite worried. So help me sleep again, please.
Okay. Jason.
Through the chair, I guess what we're just highlighting here really is with these projects in particular, I'd sort of focus on the Gore wastewater consent renewal and the Matoda River crossing project. As committee members are well aware, these projects do contain a significant element of risk. They are projects that have a number of contributing factors to them, and in either case, particularly I guess where we've seen those red dots is that if, and again I don't want to sort of go too much into it because we will discuss the reports at the end, but if we aren't able to achieve a couple of things in those the ability to to achieve those projects can change. But again, I'll just bring you back to the status key. And so orange again is around some concerns, but they're manageable. So it's not we're out of control. It's still, we feel that they're on track, but there's, we've just got to watch them pretty closely. And then there's red where it's being closely monitored or requires a council decision. And so those two reds again are around the drilling project under the river, which we know carries risk in terms of how we can do a lot of investigation into that, but there are no guarantees. And then for the wastewater consent renewal, that is just, we're very early on in that project and that process. And so there's a number of bits and pieces that have to fall into place in order for us to achieve the right outcome there. And I guess we're also included into that, that red dot for the consent renewal is funding. So this is a big project with a significant capital cost that, as you're seeing now around the country, there's certain challenges for the ability of councils to actually achieve these scale capital projects. So that's where we've moved to. So hopefully it's not a doom and gloom or you can't sleep at night, David, but hopefully we're providing just a little bit more of an overview in terms of the potential risks associated with these projects.
No, I agree. Thank you. Thank you.
Just another comment would be on the consenting process would be the availability of land too, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Neville.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you tell me what's the criteria of getting the works onto the project register? Because I'm a little bit concerned that we haven't got Hilbury Ave reservoir up there, because it's part of the upgrade, and to get compliance, the reservoir has to be up and running, and it has to be up and running by 2025. So why is it not on the register?
Jason, would you like to comment?
Through the chair, so the pump station's on there in terms of that construction. The reservoir, I think, is actually scheduled for year 2 of the this next LTP. So we haven't started the design and detailed work for that. So that project is at this stage not on there. It certainly will be, and I guess it's a bit of this overlap that David pointed out, is we're coming to the end of a cycle of completion of a significant number of key projects, and now once we remove these ones that are completed and almost complete, then we will start to, I guess, project those key projects moving forward, but also acknowledging that through an LTP process there's going to be some feedback on those projects and how they, where they should fit potentially in our planning. So through the LTP process. So there's just a bit of work to still go before we bring them onto this project register.
Just a comment. Do we actually need Hilbury Ave reservoir in place to get the drinking water standard complete? Or is it just mainly the river crossing and getting the water across from East Gore first? Would you comment on that, Jason? Thanks.
Yes, I understand that is the case. However, there are significant risks associated with the current reservoir at Hilbury Ave, and we want to get those updated. But I think Aaron might have a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To complete the reservoir upgrade, we need to get the water across from East Gore first. So we can't actually do the reservoir upgrade until that water's over from East Gore. So it's sort of a two-part project. So once we can get the Gore pipeline under the river, then we'll be able to start planning for the new reservoir.
Councillor Phillips.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So my concern is that we have to December 2025 to be compliant. So therefore the reservoir has to be up and running for us to be compliant with the protozoa consents. So if we don't have the reservoir and the money set aside and virtually building, we won't get consent in December 2025. We'll be out of our consenting. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mr Chair, we have to have a plan and financing in place by 2025 for getting that compliance signed off. So that should be done, because we'll be able to hopefully have the pipeline across, and then we'll have the plan for the funding for the rest that has to get approval from ROI.
Just going back to my comment though, you'll have UV treated water across, if you get that pipeline across, if you plug it into the old reservoir, it's still going to be compliant, isn't it? Or am I wrong? Aaron?
For you, Mr Chair, it's not UV, it's membrane treated water from East Gore, but yes, we will still be compliant once that pipeline comes across.
Thank you. Any further comments, Neville? So we don't actually need, my way I see it is we don't actually need the reservoir changed. As long as we get the water from the membrane plant across, we will be compliant. Or am I thinking wrong?
Well, Mr Chair, you and I are thinking in the same line, because I believe the way I read it is that, sure, we'll be compliant if we get the water across under the river, but if the reservoir is not up to scratch, we won't get compliance.
Any comment from Jason or Aaron?
Now again, I think I'll have to check that, but I think Aaron's approach to that is right in the fact that if we have that plan in place, we will be therefore compliant with the request by Taumata Arawai, and therefore we'll have that in place. We'll then be meeting their expectations in terms of the protozoa compliance. But look, I'll go away and double check that and bring that back to you, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Jason. Any further comments? Steve wants to comment, I think, when he gets plugged in. Could someone pass him a mic?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chairman. I think Jason almost stole my thunder, but what I suggest we do, rather than try and second guess what Te Mata Arawai might be contemplating in terms of a clearance, that we just go back and report back to the committee about the reservoir project and its importance or otherwise and associated with drinking water compliance, as distinct from addressing health and safety and water capacity issues in the Gore Township.
Councillor Phillips.
Can I also add that we have a time frame on that too, thanks, Steve?
Time frame.
Time frame?
A time frame as in said is, because we've got to be compliant by 2025, and I just want to make sure that if we just need to have our compliance and everything set up financially, that's fine by me, right? But if we have to have a complete rebuild by the reservoir, then we're going to be struggling, if you know what I mean?
Yes. Sure.
Thanks.
I think what I've read is we have to have a plan and in place by 2025, and it's got to be pretty concrete. Yeah. But we need to confirm that.
Well, concrete means that we've sat in since 2021 thinking about building a reservoir, and it's not up there yet.
We will get a report back for that, I think. Any other comments on the Ben?
So it's probably, thank you, Mr Chair, outlined in the LTP, but what's the reason behind the chicken and egg situation with the reservoir? How come you can't do the reservoir now? Sorry, this might be my lack of Three Waters knowledge.
For you, Mr Chair, we can, to get a compliant reservoir, we need the compliant water to come across from East Gore, and we can't take the current reservoir offline service the town without having a reservoir. Once the pipeline comes over from East Gore, we can run a bypass so that there is no reservoir while a new one is being built. So that's the reason for having to get that pipeline across first.
Thank you, Aaron. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Thank you. Any other comments on the project register? Someone like to move that the report be received? We can probably follow some of the things up in detail on each project. Thank you. Stuart, can you move that? Thank you. Seconder? Joe Stringer seconded that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. We go on to the Elizabeth Street water services upgrade. And any comment from Jason?
No, just happy to take the report as read, and if there's any questions, we'll, between Terry and myself, we'll respond to those.
Lots of hands. Councillor McDonnell.
Just a quick comment that the street looks good. I had a drive up today. The road berms look good, and most of the tar ceiling's been done into the driveways, so it's starting to look very, very tidy again.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, just one comment on, and I hope I did my maths right. There's still 3 properties that had not approved, or there's no movement in connection. Is that correct? And how far along with those?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's been some significant updates on the private property stuff since this report was written. And so your question was in related to, are there still just 3 properties to be connected?
Oh, there was 3 that were unaccounted for. I was in the... Where did I see that? Oh, I think I might have got the wrong one.
I think you may be talking about the original 62.
Yes.
Yeah, what's happened is that as we've been going through, so that original number was put in based off a non-site assessment, if you will. As we've been continuing, we've been assessing the sites, and some of those properties that were included in that 62 do not require separation because they've already been done. Just to add to that, I think the number in the report says 29. It's actually up to 35 properties completed now.
So that's there's still 7 properties to complete plus 7 properties to do design for, is it?
Yep, there's a number of, we still haven't looked at some of them, so although the designs are in place, we haven't initiated the building consent process, basically because the contractors have been inundated with work. I just didn't want to upload them, but the original intention was to get them all finished before Christmas, but we're going to be into March, I think, now.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Fraser.
I was reading in that too, they were talking about infiltration rate, and the last downpour we have was not up to expectations. Can you expand on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, the design for the infiltration rate had requested 50 millimetres an hour of infiltration. And when the testing was done, we got significantly less than that, despite the fact that the basin is now operational and it's working as in terms of the design. We're not getting the infiltration rates that was designed for, so we've asked the contractor to go back and do some assessments on the soils and the types, the materials that they put in there. So we're waiting for that report to come back from Fulton Hogan. Yeah, so.
You want to comment? No. No further comments? No further comments on Elizabeth Street. I'll, someone recommend that the report be received. Councillor McDonnell, and Councillor Richard McPhail seconded it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried.
Question, is Richard a member of the committee? Paul is, I don't think Richard is.
Check.
Just check the list.
Check. Councillor Phillips will second it in the meantime. We'll keep moving on. Technical point. He's not, so Councillor Phillips seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you for picking that up. The Eastcore water treatment plant upgrade, is there any comments on that? Is that from Aaron? No, Jason's going to do this, yes. Thank you.
Again, happy to take the report as read and any questions. We'll note that there's still the ongoing noise issue that we're remedying, and there's hope to have that final piece of that work in place next month and get that retested. So that's effectively what's the final part of that that project, and we're hoping to have that completed as soon as possible.
Question from Robert. Try another one.
Just as a matter of interest, the noise, is it like a low frequency hum, or is it an out there higher pitched noise? Because some of those low frequency noises can be hell of a things to get rid of.
Okay, Jason, would you like to comment?
Possibly won't comment on the type of noise because I don't have to listen to it, but regardless of what type of noise it is, the testing by that we got undertaken by Marshall Day, it exceeded the district plan requirements, and as part of the design contract, it was there, falls with Marshalls to remedy that that part of the process, and that's what we've been working with them over the past few months to get sorted. And so we'll go through this process and hopefully see that new testing show that it complies. Otherwise, we'll be looking at Marshalls for further upgrades to make sure it does.
Thank you for that. It's just that comment that you know, different frequency sounds, low frequency sounds carry a long weight, like low down hums, and they're hell of a things to get rid of. But it's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. That project's pretty much come to an end, and it'll be good to see it finished. Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for my swift exit there. Didn't mean to disturb the meeting. We still on the Elizabeth Street item?
No, we've jumped onto the score. But
am I able to circle back to that? Sorry, Mr. Chair. Just on the fences, after copying in the net from a number of members of the public during the floods, is there a plan for that report to come to council?
Jason was going to comment to me about that. I'll get him to comment.
Yes, we have received a number of issues around that. And again, we wanted to see, first of all, that before any fencing is undertaken, that the retention basin is operating as it is, because we don't want to fence it and then have to go back in and do work. And so there's some reports on that infiltration rate, as Terry outlined. And obviously we've had a couple of significant rainfall events which have showed what the basin does, and it is still draining away pretty quickly, but it has raised some concerns with residents, so we will be bringing a report back to council around fencing that, and also the one, potentially looking at the one at Matai Ridge as well, which is another basin, although a bit different to the scenario we have at Elizabeth Street, so certainly on the radar.
Thank you.
What did we get to? Got it. Yes, we've moved that, I think. Did we? Okay, we have a mover for to receive the report for the Eastcore water plant. Councillor Fraser, and a seconder, Councillor Paul McPhail. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We'll move on to the Wigham Street wastewater mains replacement update, which is pretty much complete. Any reports from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is pretty much complete. We were pretty close last time. Again, just want to highlight this was a pretty complex project from start to finish, crossing through a number of different landowners, the railway, state highway. There was a lot of opportunity to things to go quite poorly here, and they haven't. And so I just want to acknowledge the contractors involved in this project and the staff who've worked collaboratively alongside some of those stakeholders to get this through on time and under budget. So that's I think a rewarding project for the team, and deserve the acknowledgement for doing that and trying to keep that to a disruption to a minimum. Happy to take any questions.
I'd just like to comment also that it's good to see project completed on time and in budget, and well done. Any comments from any other councillors? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bouquets are required. Congratulations, Jason. Well done.
No more comments?
Just going to jump in there with a well done as well. To get almost 25% under budget is pretty impressive. So very well done to yourself and the team.
Would someone like to move that this report be received? Councillor Joe Stringer, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. The partial desludging of the Gore oxidation ponds project update. Going to hand that over to Jason.
Again, another one that's been completed pretty much this year, and another one where we've had a good relationship with contractors involved to get that that one completed with a little bit of the contingency left over. So yeah, happy to take any questions really around that one.
Everyone's very quiet. It's well, another comment. It is another project well done and completed, and I dare say it'll be ongoing in the future, or what we have to do down there. Mr. Perry.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to really just point out that both those projects, both the Wigham Street wastewater main, trunk main replacement and this desludge, really does significantly reduce the risk that was posed to the council only as recently as a year or two ago. I recall the 2020 flood when that Wigham Street pipeline was exposed, and we thought, gee, there for the grace of God goes that whole trunk main. And the desludging, of course, we've had capacity issues there, and this is the first time it's been desludged since the ponds were put in place back in the mid-70s. So it's both of them are quite milestone projects, but they do lower the council's risk to failure, which I think should be recorded as being quite comforting.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
Just a refresh of my memory, please, Jason. What happens to the bags now, and what's the timeline on them?
This may be a question better suited for Matt or Terry, but basically my understanding is, again, they will sit there now, and they basically dry out, and it's over a period of time, and then once they've fully dewatered those bags, then the residual residue and waste is taken then off-site for disposal.
So it's a non-toxic type of dried out waste that can be buried at an approved facility.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to be a slayer of good news, but what happens to the contingency? Because we took the money from elsewhere to complete this project.
Jason.
being a capital project and that they're effectively debt funded, it's I can't remember what the figure is, $100,000 of debt that we don't have to draw down and then pay back. So that's where the saving is.
105.
105, yes, thank you.
Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually going to make that point, but for all of them, there's quite a significant contingency available across all the projects, racking up to almost $1 million, which is pretty impressive in terms of debt we don't have to pull down. I guess what I was wondering is whether the demolition of the water tower then comes back onto the list to be considered again now that we have a bit more contingency, or kind of where that sits, considering we've pulled money away from that project.
Probably Jason can comment on this one.
Yeah, exactly. Look, that's a really good question in terms of, I guess, and that'll be one of the critical things, I guess, in front of council in terms of the long-term plan for Three Waters is what projects we prioritise. We've already talked about the Mataura River Crossing project, the Hilbre Avenue Reservoir, and we've also got the tower there. But we still have that, even though we've haven't spent everything in those projects, it means we're still well aware that we've got a limited borrowing capacity, and so we've got to still make some decisions through that long-term plan process about what we can achieve in the short term in particular. So that'll be the challenge for you guys.
No more comments on the desludging. Would someone like to move that report we received? Councillor McDonnell, seconded by the Mayor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. The Gore and Mataura Wastewater Consent Renewal Project update. This is just in its infancy, just the start of it. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as detailed in Matt's report, the consultants now are looking into the detailed investigations after confirming a short list of options. That's being developed. We've also had some on-site investigations done looking at the suitability of some sites for our ongoing wastewater consent renewal needs, and the key part of that process now is completing that design, the detailed investigation early next year, and looking at a preferred option for that, so we can lodge a consent with Environment South. And so we're going to be tight pushing through to April to get that in place, but we'll continue keeping ES updated, and we, as the Chair stated, there's also some chicken and egg around potential land options, and when we may have to go through a discussion, negotiation around land purchase, but that's a part of that process working forward. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Does this project line itself up for this fund that the government are mooting?
Through the Chair, I hope so. These wastewater upgrades are significant costs, and we're not the only ones that are feeling them. Even now, you look at our neighbours, Southern District, they've got numerous wastewater consents. It'll be a challenge too for Invercargill City and councils across the country, and I guess is what one of the drivers for water reforms, whatever way that looks. So we're certainly going to need some funding assistance, and any funding available from central government, we'll certainly be putting a hand up. And again, a first cab off the rank in terms of getting our consent in. It puts us well placed to sort of hopefully access funds sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to thank the staff on the continued hair pulling, I presume, on this issue, and it just goes to show that the money that central government have put upon local governments to be wasted and poor ratepayers are yet funding the bill. And, you know, and I'm pretty sure that if every ratepayer has seen this report about how much money the SIPs has spent so far just on consenting on 2 ponds plus Waikaka, you know, it gives me evidence when I'm confronted by a ratepayer about, you know, how much money we're spending, and this is one of the reasons. And I just hope that central government get on board and open their eyes to what's happening out here.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and I totally agree with what Neville said. It's what I've got down here. We're over budget within a year. What's it going to be like further down the track? And it just seems like an endless money pit to appease central government.
Any other comments? We look forward to progressing this project. Oh, sorry, the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just struggling to formulate my question, but what year would this need to be enacted, this process? When would we need to have, is it 2027 this needs to be completed by, this project, or is it dependent on the consent, or
It's the
timeframes?
the comment myself, it's the consent we're looking for to get, and then the process of actually doing the work will be over, could be over 20 years. Even it could be longer than that by the time the whole project's finished. Yeah. Jason.
Yeah, I think look, that'll come out through the consent process. So as part of once we actually get the consent into Environment South, and then they'll probably put we'll hopefully be able to work with them to negotiate a term, which will then mean we would need to have this in place by X date. Could be speculation in terms of what that looks like, but again, it's understanding that we do have operating existing operations there, and it's just a matter of what's the time frame to get that implementation of these consents at a significant cost.
Thank you for that. I guess where my question was leading is currently we're taking out Three Waters as of 2025 in our long-term plan. If we're suddenly told to put it back in, what does that look like in terms of the allocation towards that throughout our long-term plan? Or would we largely leave it out until we know more? What does that kind of look like in the meantime?
Would Mr. Perry like to comment on that one?
I just only caught the end of your question, Your Worship. So was that about what it looks like in that long-term plan, this particular project financially? Yeah, it's a very good question, because some of the work will be determined by the consent that's issued and the milestone-based timetabling that's likely to be involved in that consent. So I think off the top of my head, I think there will be possibly, obviously, the cost of securing a consent, and we may allocate some money, for example, like some land purchase towards the 10-year timeline of the consent. But the actual physical works may well be part of our infrastructure strategy, but may not be in the 10-year timeline of the LTP. Off the top of my head, that's probably what I think we land on. It's fair to say this is the type of project that, given our debt covenants with the local government funding agency, we're going to need external assistance, and we're going to need a lot of it, because the numbers associated with this project are pretty daunting. But again, as others have mentioned, we're not the only council in this particular predicament. We're probably one of the few that are entering a consent process, though. A number are looking at what needs to be done. We're actually in the slipstream of applying for consent, and we will get, in the end of it, hopefully a consent, but a commitment to do certain things over a certain period of time, and I think quite likely that will be involving probably getting our discharge out of the river, because to iwi that's the bottom line imperative.
Thank you. Any further questions? It's a big picture thinking.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I guess it's a big what-if exercise, and with the uncertainty around Three Waters, I guess my fear is if we have to put Three Waters back in all of a sudden and trying to fit in a project that we simply can't afford, it's going to make things very messy. But I guess that's largely out of our hands, unfortunately.
Whether this is in the Three Waters or outside the Three Waters, the public will still have to pay. Mr. Perry.
Just further to that, I think His Worship's correct, and look, it just highlights the fact that Three Waters, what the councils in New Zealand are faced with is the double whammy of ageing infrastructure that was put in place to a large degree with the benefit of central government assistance over the decades up until the 80s, and then on top of that, rising environmental standards. You put those two together and you've got a perfect financial storm, which for councils is just a step too far, and some external funding needs to come from the centre, because all the clever manoeuvrings around splitting your balance sheet and creating new entities, the bill still gets hit home to the same consumer. And I think for New Zealand Incorporated, we need an external funding source outside local ratepayers to deliver these necessary upgrades.
Thank you. A very, very timely comment. It probably needs more pressure on central government, but I dare say every council in New Zealand will be putting that pressure on. Any further comments? Would someone like to move that this report be received? Councillor Stringer and Councillor Fraser second it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. The Matera River Crossing project update, something that's actually in the process, and Jason would report on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in terms of this project, the scope really of this financial year is around the design and investigations for this, with the delivery of this project scheduled for year one of the LTP, so the 24-25 year. Hadley and Brunton, the sort of specialists in this industry, have responded with a expression of interest, and we're working through options with them and Becca, who have done the preliminary design, and those two are working through investigation currently. Recently met with Hadley and Brunton, who again, with their significant experience, and particularly locally as well, provided some different pipe options which we're considering, along with making sure we allow for additional capacity for future growth. So this is, as I stated earlier, complex project, but one that is critical to our infrastructure and ensuring that all the residents of the Gore Township are having protozoa compliant drinking water, and that's something we want to get through and completed as soon as possible. So we're working hard to make sure we get that across the line. Happy to take any comments or questions.
Mayor Ben Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Bit of a roller coaster reading the design and consenting. When I saw the old Cleanfield site, my heart sank and thought that we were going to run into problems, but I'm glad to read at the end there that no significant concerns were raised. Just, I guess, actually want to say a huge thank you and congratulations to staff primarily, but also to elected members of making a decision on this project. It means that we actually have a chance of getting in before this 2025 deadline, which we wouldn't have done if we continued to muck around and decide which way we were going to go. So really happy that we've made the decision, that we're underway and this project's going. Obviously touching wood that this project continues to go well. I know it's highly technical and there's a long road to go, but I'm glad we've at least got a shot to meet those regulations. So really well done, everyone.
Councillor McDonnell.
Jason, have we done any actual drilling along the site to see what the rock bed's like and that? 'Cause this is, David Prentice said those dots were keeping him awake at night. This is a project that keeps me awake at night because I can just see it consuming that $1 million that Mayor Ben talked about having a saving very quickly if it goes wrong.
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. So those cores have been drilled, and those investigations have taken place. And so again, that can only provide you with a certain amount of certainty in terms of this type of project. But again, using Hadley and Brunton, who are familiar with locals, and that's why sort of the recommendation around pipe sizes has been provided, is to try and again eliminate the risk of it failing, and so there's it's been good to work through that. But yeah, look, it is what it is. We are certainly trying to tick every box that we can, and we'll certainly be coming to council regularly on this project as we, particularly as we start to finalise that design and get ready to push the go button for it moving forward. But yeah, certainly understand the some of the concerns there, Councillor McDonnell.
Just a comment, is it two tunnels or one, and what size pipe? Is it 250 mil?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It was originally proposed 2 pipes at 225, and Hadley and Brunton's come back and they proposed up to 4 pipes at a smaller diameter, which will give it extra capacity over and above the 2 pipes that was initially asked for. Plus, it's reducing their risk. So we're waiting for that report to come back from Hadley and Brunton.
Thank you. Any comments from councillors? Yep, David. David.
Through you, Chair. Just a couple of comments and reflections from me. Without being overly dramatic, this project is clearly the highest risk project that we've got just now. You know, of the 6 categories that we've got, I think 1 of them are green, 4 of them are orange, and 1 of them's red. So we should take this very seriously, especially when we're any time that we're drilling underground. I'm sure everybody in the room knows that increases the risk as well. So when I look at the risk section at the end on page 46, I'm a little bit surprised that there's not a clearer definition of the technical risks in the project and how those technical risks are being mitigated and what the impacts of any delay, should we have any issues with the directional drilling, which almost certainly we will do. The second point that's maybe for reflection away from this meeting is there's obviously as we discussed earlier, the Hilbury Street Reservoir is contingent on the successful completion of this project. So I wonder whether it's worthwhile, and we may have this already, but I wonder whether it's worthwhile this committee getting some form of a consolidated view, a consolidated Gantt chart, which actually shows the interdependencies between the 2 projects and what might happen if there is actually a significant delay in the directional drilling here and what that might mean to consent issues. Now, I'm sure you've thought about all of these things, but I'm not sure I fully understand the risks in this project yet and what the downstream impacts could be on Hilbury Street Reservoir and therefore, as I said earlier, the ability for us to get a successful consent.
It's a question for Jason, but I think all in the room realise the risk, and we do hope and pray that the 4 holes under the river are successful. But we do need contingencies.
Through the chair, yep, no, great points, David. I think given how significant this project is, I think there's a bit more information we can pull together to give councillors a bit more clarity around where the project's at, what our I guess our risks are, and what I guess worst case scenario what plans B, C, and D might be, and so that's we can. I think what I'm hearing from the committee is the level of risk which we're all aware of, and look, we can certainly provide a bit more detail into this report in particular, given its significance and importance to Gore District.
Thank you.
Is there any comments from councillors? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'd be interested in see what your contingencies are, because I never voted for this. I voted for a bridge, but at the end of the day, we've got to take a risk somewhere along the line, and I feel that part of the contingency, if it's too great, is that we think about redesigning and rebuilding the Hilbree Reservoir. You won't need a big one, you only need a little one as part of the contingency.
Councillor McPhail.
Through the chair, I think this whole project, one of the big things is we've got to keep the public informed on what we're doing, because there's been a lot of discussion about this before now, and the significant risks we have and the possibilities in the future is if we can somehow, I don't know, front foot this in a positive way is what we need to do, I believe anyway. It's just my thought.
Councillor Fraser.
Yes, I'm a bit like Councillor Phillips. I prefer a pipe to be above the ground than under it, and like Councillor Phillips, I wondered why you couldn't upgrade this side of the river as a contingency, because drilling underground, the risk, and everybody's mentioned it, the cost could be astronomical, the ongoing cost or the halfway cost or whatever under this build and design type system that they're suggesting.
Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, I've also got now a problem when they changed the contingency in the aspect of the design, is that we were thinking about 2 pipes and two shots, and now we're looking at 4 shots, which is 4 times the risk. Even though you think you're going to get a little bit more capacity, yeah, it's got my concern. Thanks.
Aaron, is it?
Just on that, Councillor Phillips, the reason they're looking at 4 shots is it's less risky than doing the 2 shots, because they can do it a lot quicker. And on the why we didn't upgrade the treatment plant on the North Gore at Hilbree, the compliance costs, ongoing compliance costs and build costs of a new treatment plant to meet the drinking water standards would far exceed what we are currently looking at for this project. And then we only have 1 ongoing plant that we have to maintain throughout Gore.
It's interesting, when I was doing drainage, I do drainage at home for the farm, and we had a math drainage man teaching us how to do it, and he said, a 1/2-inch pipe is far stronger than a 2-inch pipe. And if the example was, if you lay it on the ground and you run over it with a car, the 1/2-inch pipe would probably survive, but the 2-inch pipe would get squashed. Mr. Perry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it's really relevant conversation, but I think just to remind all speakers that this project and its alternatives are all laced with risk. There is no kind of cotton wool safe route to get to where we want to. We've always known that direct drilling under the river is fraught with risk and uncertain cost, but so is a bridge with consenting issues and construction cost rises. I think really that the council has had a very comprehensive debate about the options. It's headed towards direct drilling under the river, but as the project matures and if other things come to the fore that weren't contemplated when the council decision was made, it may behove officers to come back to the council fresh, but I don't think we're there yet. But obviously if the costs do balloon out as the design and build approach or construct approach materialises, then we just need to keep in tune with the original rationale behind making the decision and whether that's still applicable or if there's been any changes since that time that would warrant a review of that particular decision.
Thank you. Ben Brown.
I guess it does raise a good point then of if we're now doing 4 smaller shots, does that then double the price or is that still an unknown? Because I know it lowers the risk, but does it increase the price? I see Aaron saying no.
Aaron would like to comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is it's not going to increase the cost. It's going to make it more certain that they can do it within the costs by doing the 4 shots. But Terry may be able to elaborate more.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll concur with Aaron's statement, and that is how the project's being put across to us from Hadley and Brunton, is that they're looking to minimise the risk for the project, and if the risks are both financial and constructability, I think we're going to reduce them by putting 4 pipes in. They haven't indicated that the costs are going to be higher.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Just a question then. So what's the capacity increase then by putting in the 4 shots compared to the 2? What's the percentage difference?
Really, Mr. Chair, that's something I don't have the information on. I'm not sure if Terry will have it, but we can go back to the committee with it.
Jason will comment. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think we're probably a wee bit early in the conversation for that. Again, this has just been an option provided at this stage by Hadley and Brunton as part of the investigation works, and so we're working actually, again, moving from 2 pipes to 4 pipes decreases the risk, but there's also changes to pressure and things like that. So there's a lot of that's part of this investigation. We're trying to, again, understand those now. So this is why we're taking this sort of approach, checking all options, and certainly then from there we're best placed to make a decision about what the best option is to get the job done. But certainly just options at this stage. It's not certainly going one way or the other.
Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Just so, Jason, if they do the first drill and find it's easy going, are they just going to stick with 2 then? Is that the possible scenario? No. They've decided 4 is what they want to do and just go with that.
Councillor Strang.
Oh.
Just comment,
just comment on that. So, yeah, just again, what the contractor is looking at is just based on experience. A smaller pipe diameter has certain less risk, and so again, there's a lot of work to go through. And then in terms of this process, we'll get to the end of that investigation, finalise what the design is, and then what the cost is, and then we'll come back to council and just confirm before we then enter into that final contract in terms of the construction, about where we're heading. And so again, it's not a this is an important part, but certainly we'll keeping council informed of that, and then therefore through that process we'll have a bit more certainty to say to our community as well, look, through this investigation, this is what we've found, this is what we believe is the best option, this is what we're going to go for.
Thank you. Councillor Strang.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, having had some experience on horizontal thrusting machines and directional drilling, as you go larger in your bore size, the heads that you use for doing your thrusting get exponentially higher in cost, like up to $500,000. So if you shear your string off halfway through the thrust, you can lose $500,000 just like that, and sometimes it's not recoverable. So having those smaller heads, which can get down to $30,000, $40,000 on a smaller one, less likely to lose it, and you've still got high tension in your string behind it too. So it comes down to those cost benefits, and you can get away with a smaller rig as well. You don't need to have a traffic management plan to shift a big heavy machine. We can use a smaller 5 to 10 tonne machine.
Thank you. No further discussion on this project? Would someone like to move that the report be received and the risk received? Councillor McFarnell. Is there a seconder? Okay, Ben Bell, the Mayor, seconded it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. We're over to the compliance requirements for protozoa barriers and drinking water supplies. Matt, or Terry, is this one? Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess we've effectively covered this off in some of the previous conversation. So again, really happy to sort of take questions, but as you will all be aware, this has sort of flared up a little bit since the issue arose in Queenstown, and so there's certainly been a bit of a push nationally around the need for compliance again, and so this is just really going out to all councils, assessing what the lack of compliance is and what the plan is to get these standards in place. And so this hopefully reasonably self-explanatory there, but happy to take any questions or comments.
Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jason, because I was reading through that letter and in paragraph 2 on page 53, and it says, for the sake of clarity, funding or affordability challenges are not biased for failing to comply with the legislation.
That is right. Any other comments? If no more comments on that, some recommendation is that the report be received and that the council notes Tamariri Rauanao's expectations for achieving compliance with requirements for protozoa barriers and drinking water supplies at any cost. Councillor Fraser's going to move that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Stringer. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Hang on. Neville.
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
Can this report go to the Audit and Risk Committee? Because at the end of the day, I believe that this is a quite a risky thing that we need to make sure that we comply with compliance, etc. in the years stated.
It's noted. I think something you can just pass it on to Mr. Perry. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. The Matera Water Treatment Plant upgrade. Another project that's virtually completed. Just a few minor things.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I guess a pleasing project. Really good engagement across the contractors and a number of staff. Obviously, our project staff with Matt and Terry, but also our operations team led by Aaron, but also significant contributions from Ian Lowe and Daniel down at the in terms of how this will operate on a day-to-day. So a really good team effort, and sort of happy to get this this upgrade complete. Just a few miscellaneous tidy-ups there, but another one that sort of stayed pretty well on time and with a little bit of budget in there too. So it's a pleasing result.
Any comments? Councillor Phillips.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I seem to be speaking a bit today, but It's just another bouquet, as I said at the community board meeting 2 meetings ago now. Just congratulate the staff on this project and getting the Mataura water plant operational and compliant. I've spoken to the operators and they're more than happy with the way it's performing, considering what it was like. And I look forward to having a visit and seeing what the upgrades have been.
Thank you. We've had a visit in the old plant and it'll be good to see the new plant.
Well, we hope it's clean and tidy like my last one when I left it.
You used to have it polished, didn't you? Jason?
Yeah, just on that comment, I'm not sure whether that's gone out yet or not, but there is something here coming around that visit, so it'll be good to get community board and councillors that are interested up there, and hopefully a public open day at some stage too would be great.
Good achievement, Councillor Phillips.
Just once again, I just note the contingency funding. I know that it's probably wise to put it back into the debt, but could we just sort of consider having a think about putting a little bit of that money aside for more drilling of bores for sourcing a good source of water? Just a thought.
Just a thought, yeah. Would someone move that the report be received then? Councillor Phillips. Is there a seconder? Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. The Hilbury Ave pump station project. Jason, is it? Jason.
Terry can jump into here. Not much really to add here. It's due to be completed early 2024. Terry, unless there's anything you want to add, I'm happy to ask questions, but I think Terry's can jump in.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say I haven't been involved in this project heavily. I would say probably Aaron's probably got more of a brief on it than I would have.
Aaron, would you like to comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's one that we're doing more in-house with this project. So we are resourcing that as we can and hope to get that completed as soon as we can.
Thank you. There's a question from David. No, just waving your hands. Thank you. No further comments on the Hilbury Ave pump stations. Would someone move that the report be received? Councillor Phillips. Seconder, Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Move over to Three Waters Mataura wastewater compliance update. Aaron, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This report I take as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the councillors or staff? I think the only hiccups is that when we have plant shutdowns and changeovers. No comments. Would someone like to move that the report be received? Councillor Fraser. Seconder, Councillor Stringer. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Three Waters Waikaka wastewater compliance update. Aaron again.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had this afternoon confirmation that from Environment Southland that we've met all our consent requirements on this one, and happy to take any further questions.
No questions. Someone move that this report be received. Councillor Stringer. Is there a second to Councillor McDonnell? Those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Move on to the Three Waters Gore wastewater compliance update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you'll note there, we've been marked as having exceedance on our 80th percentile limit for E. coli. The 80th percentile is a average of the last 5 samples, but these samples are going back, some of them are 3 years old, so it's quite hard to get out of that. But next time the river's up, we will be taking some more samples to get our 80th percentile back down. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I even note Environment South and recommend you do that. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, I did see that during the period of time when the Matera water plant was in its process of upgrading, we missed a couple of consents due to the chemicals used. Was that due to the what kind of chemicals were being used? Do you know?
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you elaborate more, Councillor Phillips? I'm just looking at the wastewater compliance for Gore at the moment.
I may have jumped one.
Next one there. 15 is Three Waters.
This one here, I think. Part of the next report.
24. Yeah. That might be the next one. Would someone like to move that the Three Waters compliance update for Gore be received? Or did you want to question Councillor Stringer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the system where there's a bit on page 74 about the use of UV light, and back in August, low light level conditions. Do we UV treat on the way out? Looks like it reads like we do some treatment there, but it's not quite doing the purpose. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when the river conditions or river flow is above 60 cubics, we don't do any UV treatment, and during that period of time where we've had this exceedance, that UV light or UV unit wasn't operational because it's not a requirement under the consent. And one thing that we've decided is we will be using that UV unit at all times to try and keep our limits down.
Thank you. No more questions. Would someone like to move that this report be received? Councillor Stringer and a seconder. Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. We'll move on to the Three Waters Tamariri monthly compliance report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you can see there, we have been, our protozoal compliance and bacterial compliance have been compliant across all plants apart from the Hilbury Ave. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, that was my question, and I apologise for jumping the line a bit, but I see that the Matera water plant, it was non-compliant 5 times, and that was due to, in your report it says about the treatment, upgrade of the chemical used in the coagulant had changed, and then now you reverted back to the old coagulant. Is that going back to Allen, was it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the design was for us to be using ACH under the new treatment plant. We have, because that wasn't working as optimum as it had been designed to. We've referred it back to using PAC as our coagulant, and we're getting really good results with that. The rest of the little non-compliances or non-compliance periods in that time were due to the SCADA upgrades going on at the treatment plant, and we've explained those to Mount Arawai.
Thank you. No further questions?
Just a question, did it put much extra cost using the PAC? Back to it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just couldn't quite get that. My signal's cutting out a wee bit.
Using the polyalum, was it a bit more expensive, or was it is it a cheaper option than using the AC?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the ACH is a little bit more expensive than the PAC. The PAC is a lot more tolerable to turbidity changes, whereas the alum can be pretty fragmented, and you have to be there to change it a lot more. So the PAC is a lot more suitable and more used throughout the country.
Thank you. Good move then. Would someone like to move that this report be received? Councillor Fraser. Seconder. Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. We'll move over to the Wakatanoa Investment Audit Report, Technical Audit, November 2022. And Murray will comment on this one.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, hopefully the report is self-explanatory. Probably the main thing to look at, or one of the important things to look at, is the progress on implementation on the various recommendations and suggestions that Waka Kotahi have made in their audit report. I think, from memory, all of the both recommendations and suggestions work in progress. So we are in the process of implementing, and a number of them have been fully implemented. So if there's any question, and I'd also like to apologise for not attaching the technical report to the report that came to councillors initially.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the councillors? Councillor Phillips.
Just a question, Murray, the RAM system. Have you given thought about giving it to the local contractor to be able to on-site changes? Or do you allow that or not?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't quite understand.
In your RAM system, I see it's failed, just because it hasn't been inputted sometimes, right? Do you allow the contractor that currently service us, allow them access to the RAM system? So, say for argument's sake, they've got a broken post and renew it as a new asset. Do you allow them to make the changes, or do they have to come back to you to make the changes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do currently have our contract, our routine road maintenance contract, which is K2, does have that ability, and they use it. They use some hardware called Pocket RAM in the field, so they do that. With the other contracts, we're not, the smaller contracts, we're not doing that with those contracts, but it's easier for us to input that information ourselves.
Thank you. Is there any further questions on this one? Some councillors probably haven't had too much time to read it. Thank you, Joe. Australia.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Can we just bring this report to the next roading committee as well, just to address some of the stuff in as well, please?
Thank you. I think that would be a good recommendation. Would someone like to move? Would you like to move that? Yep. Is there a seconder? Councillor McDonnell. Those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Just Councillor Benbow. Mayor Benbow, sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
They didn't
Chair.
make you quite so quick.
Let's find the ones I wanted to ask. So R2.2, which is on page 87, so it ensures it has an adequate amount of drainage. I know that from memory, we upped the drainage in our request. I guess the question is that going to be sufficient, the amount that we've asked for? And also, supplementary to that, when is the time frame that we're meant to hear back on what they think of our request and whether they're accepted or not?
Through Mr. Chair. So the amount that we've requested, probably we could always do with more, but we've actually just received today approval of increased funding for the current year as well, which you may recall that the councillors approved an increase in the funding for last financial year and this financial year, and we have put in a cost scope adjustment request to NZTA for this year to match the increase that the local share has been made. So that has been approved by council. So this current year, that will extend our ability to do more of that work in this current year. Hopefully that answers your query.
Thank you.
Sorry, just also on the overall request that we've had as well, when will we hear back on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. We haven't had any feedback at this stage regarding our request over the whole program for the 24 to 27 program. We've had some informal feedback where the NZTA have indicated that our request appears to be reasonably prudent compared with some other requests, but that's not a formal approval of the program. So that may be delayed by the change in government. There's quite a difference in the policy settings in the transport area that the new government indicated prior to the election, so that may have a bearing on the final outcome for our request. But I think ours is likely to be successful or very close to successful over the whole program.
Thank you, Jason.
Hope we didn't lowball them.
No, just a couple of things on that. First, it's actually good that some of the requested improvements align with what we've asked for to Waka Kotahi on the in terms of our draft activity management plan for roading. However, I will canvass that with the fact that if we go back 3 years and we look at what happened in the last long-term plan cycle, there were verbal communications around the fact that there was a likelihood this was going to go over the line, and then in May, 5 weeks out before LTP adoption, there was a bit of a slash and burn across the board. So we won't count our chickens, but we'll certainly continue to advocate for this work. And this is where these technical audits do come into play. You know, we're asking us to spend more in certain areas. We want to do that. We also need the funding support from Waka Kotahi to match that. So, yeah, good that there's alignment there, but certainly until they approve it in writing, we'll wait and see.
and probably as a governance, we probably need to look at how, there's going to be increased funding needed in the roading budget. Ben.
Sorry, just one other one I had, which is the S5.1 on page 90, the very last one, is GDC roading staff program to undertake night inspections. What is this actually looking for, and where are these being taken? Which route is this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So night inspections are basically a safety audit of the network. So we're looking at signs and marker pegs are generally the items that we're looking at. So we're looking to make sure that signs and marker pegs that should be there are actually there, and also looking at the effectiveness of those items, whether they're reflective or not. It's something that we can't do during the daytime because they look totally different at night. Something that looks obvious in the daytime may be invisible at night time. So we're looking at all those sorts of issues.
Thank you very much. And one last one. In the report under unsealed roads, it's got that there was a missed data entry of $12 million. That was just a mistake on our end. They didn't think they had given us $12 million and not actually. It wasn't on their records by any chance, just on our end.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so that error, my understanding, it occurred in my absence, but my understanding that it was an error on our part. We didn't actually, as far as I'm aware, didn't claim it, and we didn't receive it. So it was an error in the books. So we don't have to give back $12 million, or if that's the concern. Yeah, it should have been quite obvious at the time, because $12 million, that's more than our 3-year program, basically. So, yeah.
It sticks out in the graph real bad.
Thank you both for that. Really appreciate it.
Councillor Phillips.
Just a question for your inspections, Murray. Do you do it in-house or do you do it by contractor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the intention going forward is that we do it combined. The previous one that was done, some of the ones that were done previously were done by a consultant. I think it's better to be done in-house, or an in-house representative be involved in it. It takes more than one person to be involved in it. And I think it's wise to have a contractor's representative with the team that's doing it. It's useful from a health and safety point of view, but also from the point of view of the contractor getting first-hand idea of what we have found and what needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips, you want to comment? I think you would have done a few of these. Any further comments? Would someone like to put that the report be received and that the council implement all recommendations and suggestions contained in the report, which is quite a big ask? Mayor Ben Bell moves, and Councillor Phillips the second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried.
Do we need to do a recommendation to the effect of what Councillor Stringer rose, or was that noted by staff to send that?
There was a motion.
Noted?
Cool. So that brings to the end the public side. We'll just have a wee break, and then we'll go into the exclusion of the public side.